Hello my dear health seekers, Inga from Health Origins here, and have I got a recipe for you today. So this is another recipe from my Okara recipe series, and I've got these delicious brownies to show you how to make. Oh my goodness, these are to die for. So let's begin. So, oh my goodness, when I made these brownies, we couldn't get enough. They were lovely hot or warm. They were lovely cold. They're like nice and fudgy and they're sweet. They're so delicious. So there's going to be wet and dry ingredients. So let's start from dry ingredients. So I've got 1 cup of coconut sugar. You can use brown sugar as well, but coconut is a little bit healthier and it also has this kind of caramelly taste to it as well. You could use date sugar as well instead. That would be even healthier, but 1 cup of coconut sugar. Then I've got 1/4 cup of rice flour here. So we're making this gluten-free as well. But you know, if you don't have rice flour, you could also use 3 tablespoons of coconut flour, or you could even try with the oat flour as well. So 1/4 cup of oat flour, that should work too. So any kind of gluten-free flour you have, you could try and it should work. And then to make it more like a regular flour, because it's gluten-free, we're adding 1 tablespoon of arrowroot starch. So this is you know, this is a superior starch from what I've learned from a nutritionist, Yola Harris. She said that arrowroot starch is the most nutritionally superior to other starches. But if you don't have arrowroot, you could use tapioca, you could use corn flour or cornstarch, or even potato starch would probably work as well. So yeah, so 1 tablespoon of starch. Then we're gonna need 1 teaspoon of baking powder here. So 1 teaspoon. Then we've got 1/4 teaspoon of salt, just to bring out that kind of sweetness and all the flavors in the brownie. And then we are making this actually caffeine free, because if you could use here cocoa powder, right? So you could use cocoa powder here to obviously make it chocolatey, but I'm using carob powder instead, which gives a similar you know, chocolatey taste and look, but also it's a little bit sweeter. So carob itself, it's got a little bit of sweetness, which is an added bonus for brownies because they're normally so full of sugar, but we're, you know, not using too much. So this carob will help them to be even more kind of sweeter. But also carob is caffeine free, so you could enjoy this brownie at any time of the day, whereas if you make it with cocoa powder, you know, I would not suggest having it too late, you know, in the afternoon or evening, because chocolate has some caffeine in it, and that kind of can disturb your sleep pattern. So we're just making this with carob. So this is 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons of either carob or cocoa powder you can use. And this is it. This is the dry ingredients. So I'm going to mix those in. So this is mixed in well now. We're going to get on to our wet ingredients. So our wet ingredients, obviously we're starting from Okara, which is the star of the show, and this is 1.5 cups of Okara. Obviously you can half this recipe if you have less Okara, but we're going to add 1.5 cups of fresh Okara here for making my soy milk. I'll link down below and in the card above of how you can make your own soy milk, whether with Soya Bella or other soy milk maker, or even without, just having a nut milk bag, for example. Okay, so this is Okara. Then we adding 1/2 cup of nut butter. So you could use pretty much any nut butter, but I prefer either almond or cashew, because they are kind of more neutral. Cashew is like being more neutral, most neutral nut butter, or if you're allergic to nuts, you can make it with sunflower seed butter. And again, I'll link above and down below how you can make your own sunflower seed butter easily just from sunflower seeds. So half a cup of nut butter or seed butter goes in. And it seems quite a lot of butter, but that's what brownies are. They are just literally need a lot of fat and a lot of sugar. And we, already reduced the sugar and we're reducing the fat, but we need to introduce some sort of fat so that they really taste like brownies. So our half a cup of nut butter and a quarter of a cup of applesauce. So this is unsweetened applesauce that I made myself. It's just literally cooking and blending, pureeing apples. These are Braeburn, so they're like sweet and sour. So a quarter of a cup of apple puree. That kind of together with the nut butter replaces the fats in this recipe. So that's it. This is our wet ingredients. Oh, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Teaspoon of vanilla essence as well. And while I'm making this, I'm preheating my oven at 180 degrees Celsius, just so that it's ready to put in once we make this. So now you can either, mix it with a spatula, or I've got a immersion stick blender. I'm going to use that to just give it a good mix here. And if it's going to be a bit too stiff, especially considering adding the dry ingredients, I might add a little bit of some soy milk as well, or any other plant milk, we'll see. So this is my stick blender. I love using it for stuff like this because the batter is quite thick, so you could do it in a blender, but it just tends to stick to the walls. You could probably do it in the food process, that would work as well, but I like to do it just with a stick blender because I can control it well and it's just easy. So I'll link down below where you can get your own Swiss lime bam mix if you're interested what I'm using. So see, this batter is pretty much good actually for brownie as it is. So I'm sure we'll need a little bit of more liquid because we're adding all this dry ingredients as well. So it completely depends how wet is your Okara. If your Okara is super wet, then you might not need to add any liquids. If your Okara is drier, mine wasn't too wet this time. So yeah, so I'll probably need to add about a quarter of a cup of soy milk. So the reason I use this big jug is so that I can pour the dry ingredients into my wet ingredients, and this is pourable as well, so we can pour the brownie easier into our oven dish. So I'm adding my dry ingredients and we're gonna give it a little blitz, but I'm sure we'll need to add a little bit more liquid soon. Yeah, so see, this is a pourable consistency. This is perfect actually. I wouldn't need to add any more liquid here, so we'll just go with what it is now. So yeah, so I've mixed this up and we're going to be pouring it into our oven-proof dish and baking it in the oven. So here I've got my 8 by 8 inch or 20 by 20 centimeters glass baking dish, and I've lined it with parchment paper so it doesn't stick to the sides. It's easier to take out afterwards to cool it. And I'm just gonna pour it in. Yeah, it's perfect pourable consistency, actually, lovely. And the batter itself is already so tasty without even being baked. I've just had a little bit to try. Oh my goodness, it's so yum. So this is it. It's in here, and now it's optional whether you want to decorate it with some maybe chocolate chips, but because obviously we want to make it caffeine free with no cocoa powder in there, I'm just gonna put a few pecans just on the edges to just decorate, but you could just omit it altogether. It's completely optional. So I've got my brownie all pretty decorated with pecans, and it's going into the oven now on 180 degrees Celsius, like I said, for about 35 to possibly maybe 38 minutes, we'll see. So basically you need to cook it until, you know, when you put like either a wooden stick or a metal skewer, that it comes out pretty clean. So we're gonna bake it and then see what's the result. So the brownie has baked. Look at it, it looks perfect. So I ended up baking it for 45 minutes because after 40 minutes I've tested it with my steel skewer and it still had a little bit of kind of doughiness at the bottom. So I'll put in for another 5 minutes, and now I'm gonna let it rest for about 5 minutes like this, and then we're gonna take it out on a wire rack to cool completely, and then we're gonna taste test it. So the moment of truth, guys, this has been resting on the wire rack for a little while, and it's now pretty much cool. So I've got my expert taste tester for you to taste to taste this delicious Okara brownie.
Who'd have thought? Okara.
Yeah, so
versatile.
Oh, extremely versatile. Guys, if you don't Okara, you wish you had some now. So there you go. So let me cut it. It's a bit hard to cut through the nuts. Yeah, this is a very sticky and fudgy brownie, as a good brownie should be. Right, so let me just try and cut this here. So let's just half this one. Okay. So yeah, so grab a piece and we'll taste test this for you. I think this is the best brownie I've ever made so far.
With Okara?
No, just in general.
Oh, in general.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a claim.
That's a claim.
A big claim. Wow. It's moist. It's moist, but it's quite. It's also quite light.
Yeah, it's not too stodgy,
Wow.
is it? It's
Yeah.
moist, and because I think obviously, as you can see, there was quite a bit of rise in the brownie, but you know, still it's fudgy, still it's moist, still like how you would expect a brownie to be. The crust has caramelized a little bit. So
this is really good, guys. Really good.
in fact, I think this is a winning recipe. However, what I'm gonna do, if Mark will agree to be my chief taste tester, right? I want to make the same recipe but with different kind of star ingredients. So this one obviously is Okara. I want to also do one for sweet potato, one for carrots, and one for lentils, because I've made all of these brownies before, but obviously slightly different recipes. But I think this is a winning recipe, but I want to try with different ingredients and see which one is actually the best version for this.
I think the others would find it tough to compete with that. It's almost caramelly.
It's that coconut sugar.
Oh wow!
Because I put coconut sugar and also carob, and I think together they create this caramelly taste.
It's not
so good.
It's not overly sweet though. It's not like a massive sugar hit.
Well, it's still sweet enough.
It is sweet.
It's quite sweet actually. It's not. It's sweeter than my lentil brownie, because lentil brownie had just like maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons of maple syrup and some chocolate in it, so it was not as sweet. So this is sweeter, but that's how brownies.
Sickly.
Yeah, it's not sickly.
It's not sickly sweet or anything
brownies
like that. It's just
are supposed to be like that normally in the recipe. You know, they put at least the same amount of sugar as there's flour, and also almost the same amount of fat. So it's like proper like fat and sugar bomb normally, the brownies. But this, I think I've tried to, you know, do with as little sugar and as little of fat as possible. No oil, obviously. But yeah, so I think it's still fudgy and still yummy.
Very good, very, very good. It's better than I was even hoping it would be.
Yeah, so it's a thumbs up from us, guys. I think this will be our mainstay sweet recipe for using up Okara. So the
we do have a lot of it.
Yeah, the 3 recipes that I love the most with using Okara is this brownie. Then I love seitan Okara roast that I make. And then Okara burgers. So if you haven't seen those 2 other recipes, I'll link above and down below, so check them out. If you know, making your own soy milk, I'm sure you have a lot of Okara to use up, so that's good recipes to use. So if you're new here, welcome, and subscribe for more videos just like this, and different vegan recipes, as well as comparisons of different vegan products and weight loss tips as well, on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Yeah, and remember, guys, food is fuel.
So be mindful of what you put in the body.
Exactly. I mean, this is your naughty 20%, I guess, because it does have quite a bit of sugar, quite a bit of, you know, nut butter. But yeah, it's definitely, you could have worse than this. All right.
Keep it as a treat.
Yeah, it's a treat. So until next time, guys.
Bye.